go there, but I met thousands of people that could be able to do that and be the next Governor General. And also, I know that the ceremony, the spirituality, the knowledge, and also the Western knowledge, we have amazing people across Canada that could be appointed. And it's sending a signal, I would say. It might divide us at the same time, because what you mentioned about the colonial reality, which is a fact. But at the same time, if that person gets there, I will pray as much as I can and send some thought to make sure that she or he will get my energy, so we can defend and promote and educate that in this country, we were and still very alive.
Is there something in particular that this person would need to do to really break free of what is a really, really British tradition?
I hope that person will wear her or its regalia, or a symbol that it belongs and very sacred to her or to him, and feel that she or he can be and act and do what the value says. But it's also accepting that there is also a history behind this position. Like when I was commissioner, I couldn't do this and that. So I managed to recreate something that I will feel comfortable and find a balance. And I hope that if we do have an Indigenous person, yes, the pressure will be very, very tough and very high, I guess, and very everyday. Sorry, my English. And the connection with the family and the land and the roots and the culture will be very important. So I'm very anxious who will be the role governor. And if they don't speak French, I hope they learn, because we have many nations here in our end that they were forced to speak French as their second language. So I hope that they will not create a barrier here because of the language.
Well, you bring up what was going to be my next question, which is, could an inability to speak French rule out a lot of qualified candidates, especially out in Western Canada?
Is it an obligation? I didn't look the rules. I don't know. But I have to be honest, in Quebec, some of our people here, not Indigenous, but Québécois, wish to be a country, wish to be separate from Canada. So if the person, no matter which nation and origin, doesn't speak French, it's going to be another argument to say, see, we need to separate the person that speak French. It could be a big argument, but on that, I can understand and respect that. But I would love to see if we have an Innu person or a Métis or somebody from a First Nation that would come and learn or visit us. The language, we have to make sure that something will be in place so it's not a barrier like we're having right now most of the time. And it's one of the call for action in the Quebec report on the missing and murdered Indigenous women, how the alliance would be stronger if we didn't have that barrier. French was imposed by colonial, same with English, but let's not make this another separation among the Indigenous people across Canada.
You, of course, yourself are fluently bilingual. If the Prime Minister gives you the call, is this a job you would accept?
I hope they found somebody already, because it's been weeks now. I have to be honest with you, Todd. When I accepted the national inquiry, I didn't call my family. I didn't ask my family. I just said yes, and very, very dedicated. This time, if I do get a call, I would be very comfortable to say, I think I need to speak with my family. I need to speak with my children, my adult young children, because the life will change. But right now, I have other vision in my plate or other dreams, and maybe soon we'll know what are those dreams.
Well, Ms. Audette, I want to thank you for this conversation. I hope you have a good rest of the day.
I hope so, and I wish you a beautiful day, Todd, and thank you for the work that you do. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, thank you. Merci. After the break, Chief Bobby Cameron of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations will be by. He'll also weigh in on having an Indigenous Governor General. Welcome back. And we're continuing our discussion for the next Governor General being an Indigenous person. Joining me now is Chief Bobby Cameron. He leads the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations, which represents 74 First Nations in Saskatchewan. Welcome to Nation to Nation, Chief Cameron.
Good morning, Tansa.
Now, you don't want any Indigenous person to be Governor General except for a First Nations person. Why is that?
It's obvious and it's clear for thousands of us right across Turtle Island. When we talk about the oral education and the oral teaching handed down from generation to generation from our ancestors prior to settlers coming onto our lands and waters, it has been said and told and taught to us for decades and centuries. That inherent aspect, that treaty aspect, that relationship with the land, the hunting, fishing, trapping, gathering, we call it Wagohtuin. It is our relationship with the land that has that strength and ties. And when government and the British Crown came to these lands and waters, they saw First Nation people. As time went on, the treaties were signed, and in there, part of that symbolism and that treaty relationship with the Crown was the Governor General, and that's the bond and that's the connection for our relationship with the Crown. And it only makes sense now more than ever that we have one of our own people be appointed or selected, and our own people, I say First Nation, because we are the only distinct group that have inherent and treaty rights. And no disrespect to anybody else, and no malice, but that is the bond, and no one can ever break that treaty relationship that we have.
What about someone who certainly knows their language and culture, but are from a non-treaty area, like parts of British Columbia, for example? Should they be excluded?
I wouldn't say they'd be excluded. I mean, I would say this, and I say this, Todd, inherent and treaty rights. You see, the BC First Nations have inherent rights. They're all inherent rights holders. And then there's some of us who have treaty rights. But that inherent rights is the sole basis of why we still have that relationship with the land and waters. That is the common denominator for every First Nation person right across Turtle Island, and right across this world for that matter, is our ties and our connection to our lands and waters, our ceremonies, our language. So if it means someone from BC or treaty rights holder, the Governor General's role was our Crown relationship with treaties and the British Crown. So it's absolutely important that a First Nation person be selected and appointed, and we hope they do it rather quickly, because they want to pass legislation. Well, the Governor General's role is a big part of it.
Governor Generals, of course, are traditionally bilingual in English and French. Should that still be a factor when looking at a possible First Nations Governor General?
Well, our languages were here long before any French language or any other language entered into our lands and waters. First Nation languages were here long before anybody. So I say that with the utmost respect. The original people and the first people of these lands were First Nations. So absolutely, I mean, a dialect, a fluent speaker in many languages, but it must be paramount that it be a First Nation person who obviously is a fluent speaker.
What could a First Nations Governor General bring to those that hasn't been there before?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. Many, just the symbolism of it all. First of all, the reconciliation and the nation to nation, the most important relationship are with First Nation people. All of these great comments they've been making the past 4 or 5 years. That's reconciliation when you do this. When you appoint a First Nation person to the role of Governor General, that's reconciliation. And the symbolism of it all, the treaty acknowledgement. See, the role of the Governor General was to also come to our treaty territories and learn, listen, and educate themselves on how they can be that voice and work with First Nation people, our knowledge keepers, our ceremony people. You see, those are the true experts of inherent and treaty rights, is our knowledge keepers and our ceremony people.
In Saskatchewan, of course, Russ Marasti has been Lieutenant Governor for about 1.5 years. Has his role there changed your relationship with the provincial government?
Yeah, we acknowledge that, and we were thankful when they selected one of our own, because here we have Russ Marasti, who was a longtime RCMP officer, a very respectful man, fluent speaker. That's reconciliation. And we thanked the Premier and his government for doing so. That's reconciliation. That's moving forward. And Russ has attended many of our First Nation functions and events and ceremonies. That's what it brings. He brings that the spirit and intent of treaty, so to speak, when he comes to our territories, when he listens and learns and visits our knowledge keepers and our youth and our women's councils. And we were thankful for that, and he still does that. So that's what it brings, and that's what the Governor General role will bring if they select. I shouldn't say if, I should say when they select the next person to be the Governor General.
Well, we're certainly going to see if this really truly is the year it's going to happen. Chief Cameron, I want to thank you for speaking to me.
Yeah, take care, stay safe, and continue to to be diligent and wear your mask and sanitize.
Oh, I certainly do. Thank you. After the break, we speak to Amy Norman. She's running for the NDP in the upcoming provincial election in Newfoundland and Labrador. Welcome back. Newfoundland and Labrador residents go to the polls the day before Valentine's Day to elect a provincial government. One of the most interesting races is Lake Melville, a riding in Labrador. And because of the large number of Inuit and Innu residents, their issues are on the minds of candidates. The incumbent is Perry Trimper, running as an independent after leaving the Liberal Party for controversial comments about homeless people. Another candidate is Amy Norman. She's an Inuk woman running for the NDP. Ms. Norman joins me now. Welcome to Nation to Nation.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, the NDP has never captured Lake Melville, so why are you running for them?
I think it's really important that Indigenous peoples have a strong voice. I've always been a very outspoken and fierce advocate on Indigenous rights and on the environment. And I feel that my values align really well with the NDP. And I think it's time for a change. So I'm happy to step up and advocate for our community and hopefully, make some real change happen for us.
One of your candidates, the Liberal candidate, Michele Blakey, also says she's of Indigenous descent. I suppose, what makes you, the voice for Indigenous people in that riding?
So Michele, it's funny, I found out when she announced her candidacy that we're actually cousins, which, it's funny. Anyway, but I think, for me, I have a long-standing history of, speaking out against Muskrat Falls, which was the big hydroelectric project here, and against the methylmercury contamination that came with that project. I have always been very outspoken in speaking up on these kinds of issues. I've actually faced charges and been arrested for, speaking up and advocating for my community. So when it comes to me and Indigenous issues, I really I don't just talk the talk. I'm really walking the walk. I always have, and I always will be.
As you just mentioned, you're quite active in opposing the Muskrat Falls project. In fact, you were charged, as you said, for violating the injunction in 2016. The charges were dropped. But Muskrat Falls is now open, and just a couple of weeks ago delivered electricity to Nova Scotia. So is this project a done deal?
I mean, in the sense of it's constructed. Yes, it's essentially a done deal. But what we have to do going forward is learn from the vast amount of mistakes that were made in handling the project and ensure they don't happen again. And this is especially important because of the federal government and provincial government both advocating for a third dam on this river, the proposed dam being at Gull Island. So I think the conversation now, we have to look forward in terms of Gull Island happening or not happening. This is an especially important site on the river for the Innu Nation. They have their elders gathering there every year. I've been lucky to attend. It's a great event. So I think stepping forward and talking about Gull Island and making sure that we learn from what went wrong with Muskrat and prevent these issues from ever happening again.
One of your chief challengers is Perry Trimper, as I mentioned. And he infamously said the homeless choose their risky lifestyle, and that's why he had to leave the Liberal Party. But he also says the issue is behind him, and he has record support. How confident are you that you can defeat him?
I'm fairly confident. I don't quite understand his comments around record support, because literally everyone that I talk to is not supportive of him or his campaign. I mean, frankly, I think that people are still upset about the comments towards homelessness, and even more upset about his comments the year before around the Innu Nation, when he was caught on voicemail talking about members of the Innu community of Shaji playing the race card. So he has this pattern of behavior where he shows that he, has these biases or this disrespect towards Indigenous peoples. And I think, constituents here are tired of it, and people see through it. We have roughly half of the population of our district is Indigenous. That's, for a riding, that's huge, especially in Newfoundland and Labrador. So I don't think that people support him like maybe he thinks. I am confident in my abilities, and I am confident that, voters in Lake Melville will make the right choice and, choose someone who will actually represent them and who will not continue to make such disparaging remarks.
Considering your opposition to something like Muskrat Falls, why get into mainstream politics at all?
I think it's precisely because of that to get involved. I think, we need more voices at the tables where these discussions are being made, these decisions are being made, to actually advocate for the people on the ground. For far too long, there's been, frankly, settlers in Newfoundland making decisions on behalf of Labradorians, Indigenous Labradorians in particular. And I think it's time for that to end, really. So, I'm stepping up because we deserve better in terms of representation. And I think it's important to challenge these kind of colonial systems from all avenues, and that includes from within. So that's why I'm kind of stepping up now.
Well, Ms. Norman, I want to thank you for taking some time out of your campaign to talk to me, and good luck in the upcoming election.
I appreciate it. Nakamik.
That's our show for this week. But before we call it a day, I have an update. Last week on Nation and Nation, I spoke to Chief Rick Allen of the Constance Lake First Nation in Northern Ontario. He was frustrated that he hadn't heard anything from Indigenous Services about a vaccination plan for his community. But Chief Allen tells us now that his elders will be vaccinated in the coming days. As always, please keep safe and healthy, and thanks for watching.